Welcome to the Crafting Character Podcast. Steve Carter here, and in association with my good friends at Preaching Today and Food for the Hungry, I bring you a podcast that hopefully helps you get better at the craft of preaching and teaching while always ensuring that our character leads the way. Well, today I get to interview a pastor. He started out in South Dakota. He has pastored and preached in Illinois. He actually lives right down the road from the church that I serve at, Forest City. But this guy is one of those pastors that when you get around him, he just has a heart for the shepherds. He has a heart for the pastors. He's like the pastor's pastor. You know, he just has a way, because he's lived in this world for so long. He knows the questions to ask and the verses to double click on and the questions just to poke at your soul and at your heart. And I've been really looking forward to this interview with Lee Eclov. And he's written a few devotionals books, and they're like known as Shepherding the Shepherd. And I absolutely love them. They're connected to Preaching Today, and that's how I first got introduced to Lee and got introduced to his work. And he'd be in a couple of meetings, and I was like, man, the wisdom. There's just the wisdom. And wisdom doesn't just come. It often comes from great situations and hard situations and the Lord's teaching. But man, he is just a wealth of insight. And I'm just so excited for you all to get introduced to Lee Eclov. Lee, welcome to the Crafting Character Podcast.
Well, thanks. That's kind of a hard introduction to follow, but I'm delighted to be with you finally. This is fun.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this. For people who are just kind of tuning in, because we got people from, actually all over the world through Preaching Today and that network, different countries that are listening in. And I know many people, because you've written, minimum 50 articles for Preaching Today, but give us a little insight just on your journey from where you grew up to retirement.
Okay. Well, as you mentioned, I'm from a rural church in northeastern South Dakota. There were maybe 50, 60 people on a Sunday. And everybody was the same. Everybody was a farmer except my dad and the pastor. And my dad was the manager of a cattle ranch. So, everybody was same background. I went off to college in Chicago, started to see the bigger world, which intrigued me greatly. I eventually pastored as an associate in Deerfield, Illinois. And then I was a senior pastor in a wonderful church in Beaver Falls, Pennsylvania for 14 years. And then came to the Village Church of Lincolnshire, which was in the northern suburbs, about a mile from Trinity Divinity School. And I was there 22 years to the day. And in the infinite grace of God, retired about 5 weeks before COVID. So it was a mercy. And I think one of the most significant things for me was that I love preaching. And I assumed that if I did my job well, and if I was a good pastor, that the outcome would be pastoring a large church. It wasn't that I wanted to pastor a large church. I wanted to preach to a lot of people. I would joke I'd like to pastor about 100 and preach to about, 1,000 or something. But years ago, I was at a conference where D.A. Carson was speaking about preaching. And in the course of it, he said something like, if I were the Protestant Pope, I'd be sure that a denomination put its best preachers in the churches around its seminaries.
Wow.
And that was a riveting statement to me. And it changed the course of my desires. And in the way things happened in the path of God, I found myself in this church near Trinity. And it was about 150 people. I'd come from a church of about 650. And I assumed it would get big. And it did grow from 150 to 175 over 22 years.
Yeah.
1,000 people passed through those doors in that time, which was a sweet experience. But I had to wrestle with the idea of being a pastor effectively and successfully if it didn't show up in the numbers, which was not an easy thing. That is a hard reality. No matter what guys say about it's all about being faithful or I'll serve every, that's a hard reality. I know you've come at this kind of from the other side. You've faced the very hard reality of the big church, and you are gifted for that work. But that's kind of what my course was. And ultimately, one of the payoffs of that was the time that a large church does not give to invest in thinking about the care of souls. And ultimately, I also got to teach for maybe 20 years as an adjunct in pastoral counseling at Trinity. It wasn't really so much about counseling as it was the care of souls. And so that's kind of what happened that led me to this season of, I preach as much as I can, but I really write for pastors now.
Yeah. Well, I love this because, I never give questions out to the people I'm interviewing because I'm always like curious. And like oftentimes somebody says something right in the beginning and I'm like, oh my goodness, I didn't see it going there. Let's talk about that because I imagine that there are many, many people, whether they're in student ministry and their youth group's at 25 and they look down the street and that youth group's at 125 and they're like, yeah, we're doing the same thing. Or we look at someone who's been pastoring and, they're faithful to it. And yet there's this, healthy desire, unhealthy ambition, whatever that thing is inside. It's not all good. It's not all bad, but it's how did you actually care for your soul in the midst of not growing to the rate of your heart's desire?
I was really helped. You're a little younger than I, but in the 80s was the switch in church life where we started to think in more corporate terms, and churches started to get big. They didn't get big before that. I mean, a church in Chicago, I don't know if there was a church of more than 1,000 people in Chicago, and that was really rare. And all of a sudden, God was doing a different thing, and there were these big churches, and every city has these now. That changed the landscape, and it was very confusing for me. It was. We were hearing words like you have to have vision and strategies and all that. I tell you, Steve, that was foreign to me. That was really uncomfortable. Those words have always felt like plastic and chrome.
Wow.
To me. And some of that's just personality. I don't minimize in any way the work of God in all these different ways. There are bad big churches and bad little churches, and there are great big churches and great little churches. But for me, I was sort of rescued by Eugene Peterson. He gave me permission and help to see the ministry in different ways when the pastoral culture I knew was really pressing me to be what I just didn't know how to be.
Yeah.
And I think that was the help. And some of it honestly was just I don't know that I did anything. It was the wrestling. It was the sorrow and the relinquishment of, take care of the people you have. Be grateful you get to preach to anybody.
Yeah.
I mean, really. And gradually I saw the great benefits I remember a time where I was thinking about influence has been a really important word to me. I always think of it as sort of my currency in life. And so naturally, you'd think that the preacher who can speak to lots of people is having more influence than the preacher that speaks to a few people. But I thought about that. I remember vividly thinking about this one time and realizing, well, it's a matter of speaking, because the pastor of a big church has influence in one way, but he can't know the names of the children. He can't do all the weddings. He doesn't go to the hospitals. He can't do those things.
Right.
Even when our church was 650, I was putting up fences because I couldn't manage the barrage, the pressure, the meetings, all that stuff. I just couldn't manage it. And it was joyless to me. It was just the work I had to do. And I came to rest in this, that being, for me personally, the gifts I had to do a church of, 175, 200 was a great gift. And it was a gift to my soul because I had space that you don't have in a bigger place. I'm sure, Steve, it's much harder for you. You'd know this better than anyone, to carve out space to think and to be sensitive and, thoughtful about even a sermon because of all these things. And I had a little more space. I wasn't going to meetings all the time and stuff like that.
Well, I had a buddy of mine, Lance. He worked in the pit in stock market in Chicago. And I mean, he crushed, in the 80s and the 90s. And then something happened where it went digital. And he could read the pit. He could read, he could own the pit, faces, that he had that intuition. And then it shifted to this digital, standing in front of a computer. There's no energy around it and you're guessing. And he was like, I couldn't do it. It changed. And it's very fascinating the way that you describe that. It's like in the 80s, all of a sudden this new language started to come in that felt very foreign. Vision, mission, strategy. It was like Jim Collins, Jack Welch. They became the prophets. Of this kind of boomer church. And I think it's really amazing because you have this season where some people actually that unleashed them and they created some really healthy communities, and some, to your point, not so much. But I love what happened though for you is it actually forced you to have to say, that's not me.
Right.
I can't run that offense. And if I do, it's going to be imposter syndrome. For me, this is the offense that Pastor Lee Eclov, made in the image of God, can actually do. And I think every pastor has to go through, whether it's a crucible or whether it's a refining moment, but just to kind of understand here's the offense. Here's the way God wired me. Whether more strategic or more pastoral or more leadership oriented or more discipleship formation. But I often find so many young pastors and so many pastors in their 30s and 40s that are looking, going, well, that seems to be the thing that's working. And I got to do that without having that kind of moment that you had to really go, this isn't going to be good for my soul. And this isn't going to be good for the people that I serve. But then also that I thought you did really, really beautifully when the way you described that was you began to see, the perks and benefits of I can do this many weddings. I can do this. I can know the kids' names. Because sometimes you can only see, their life must be so much easier. They must da-da-da-da. And you realize every place has its ups and every place has its downsides, and I love that. Yeah. So care for the soul became something that was so true to you as a pastor, preacher, and shepherd. Talk about that more.
Well, one level was I was very intrigued with I started to learn about spiritual directors, which was an unheard of term in my world, and spiritual formation, which has a little different tone than discipleship. When I was young, discipleship was the term. That's what we do. Later, spiritual formation came in, which had a little bit more of a inner life element, as opposed to, the orderliness of discipleship or something. I was very interested in marrying that sensitivity, soulish sensitivity, to preaching. I was taught to be an expositor, and I am an expositor, and I'm thankful. A lot of exposition had a tone of teaching. That's the nature of it. It's now to the next verse. This is what this says. But I was intrigued with how it wasn't very often, I don't know how to say it, except soulish. An interesting application of a sermon would be to say, so based on what you've just heard, this is how you'd pray. That's a soulish application.
Yeah. So real quick, you use this word soulish, and I always think that like semantics matter. And I don't want anybody to miss this, because I bet you have this really robust, healthy definition, understanding of the soul. And I'm curious, like when you say soul and soulish and soul sensitivity, what do you mean?
Well, at the root of it, I think our soul is the part of us that connects to God. And the rest of us, our body, if I can say our spirit or our personality, are all encircle that part of us that is uniquely human, that connects to the Spirit of God. And so the soul is the part that really prays. It's the part that grasps Scripture enough to do something about it, to internalize it. It's the part that internalizes Scripture. It's the place where the real wrestling happens. There's emotions. These things are all braided together. But am I being transformed by the renewing of my mind? That's what happens in the soul.
That's so good. I'm kicking off January at our church with a series. It's all going to be on the Shema, and love the Lord your God with all your heart, your mind, your body, your soul. And I really think of like that soul, kind of the way that you're talking about it. It's like the sticky stuff, that kind of and part of the soul's work is to bring healthy integration to the heart, mind, and body. And sin really is disintegration, right? It disintegrates the heart from the body, from the mind. It just starts pulling us in fractures and fragments. And so I love when you just said that, like, oh, great, healthy peace was like my prayer, like that, like you're bringing it all together into like oneness, like we're healthy, Talk about that, because again, that is a shepherd, right? That is a pastoral sensitivity, a heart. And I resonate with that because I feel like I'm a pastor, preacher, and there are apostle, leader, builder people, and I love them to death. And there are prophets, and they all see the future, but for me, it's like, I love like the process of leading people step by step, forming and shaping and watching them grow. And I feel like you've done that. You've just like, with the staff, just gone slow for the congregation, even though you might be like 10 steps ahead, but just like, I gotta bring them to water, and I want them to not miss this point. So we're going to double click there.
Yeah. Psalm 23 is our job description.
Wow.
Right. I mean, this is the good shepherd. And you can I've done this with other pastors. It's just, okay, let's just take this line by line. How does that look for you? And, at the heart of that is he restores our soul. And that word restore, as I understand it, has the idea of turning, like repentance does. It's this reorienting of souls. I just took a week away. Here I am retired. I took a vacation. And I went by myself and sat in a sweet place by a pool in Florida. And it was my express purpose was to restore my soul. I literally would sit with my feet in the pool and read the Bible. That's how I tried to get it in my head, right? I think that's the sensitivity we bring to people. If we are, that expository mindset that just says, I'm going to teach you the word. Well, that is soulish, and God's word does penetrate. But if the preacher or the teacher or the counselor is able to say, now let's go and see where this integrates with you. A spiritual director is not the same as a counselor. A counselor looks at a problem, and it's if you can kind of picture two people on the two little stick figures, and the dynamic is back and forth with God in view. Yeah, and that's very important. A spiritual director takes a look helps you see what's going on between you and God.
Yeah.
They look into that. That's what a sermon should do. You take the scriptures as your sort of staircase into some part of that. Same with counseling. It's really to see into the soul. When David in Psalm 103, bless the Lord, O my soul. He forgives all your sins. He heals all your diseases. He redeems your soul from the pit. He crowns you with. Those are all soulish remedies that God brings. And it's my job to look at my own soul and to constantly be trying to wrestle with. And I'm not great at this. I mean, it's not like I'm some pro. This is hard. But also I always feel like a pastor, in a sense, goes first. I process stuff that then shows up in the way I preach. If it's a sorrow, if it's anger, if it's a disappointment, whatever it is, these things have to get worked out in me so that when I preach on something that touches on them, there is this resonance, I think, in people's hearts.
Yeah.
There's something beyond the mind, beyond truth. And when you preach scripture, that just the facts of it resonate with the Christian heart and rattle the non-Christian heart. But when you are kind of doing soul work, there is this, oh yeah, kind of feeling.
Yeah. So let's, I'm going to set this up. So give you like a couple seconds to think about this. I want us to break this down with the teaching, because I love that idea of that spiritual director image. You just kind of, it's we and God, and this like spiritual director is almost like looking into it. And you said that's what a sermon should do. A sermon should and talk about how you would write those sermons at the Village Church. Like how would you, in a way, create that space where the sermon could open up the soul and begin to imagine, or maybe it's Second Timothy language, where like the word could, rebuke and correct and teach and train. Like talk about how did you do that?
That's such a great question. First step is it has to get into my own soul. I have to pray this into my life. And it isn't always about, overcoming disobedience or something. Sometimes it's just, I haven't thought about it like this before. Or, a great question when you're studying the Bible is everything in the Bible is counterintuitive. And so you're kind of poking for what you kind of think, if this wasn't here, I wouldn't think this. What would I think? And let's, just play with that a little bit, work that out. It's to pray it out, whether it's thanksgiving or, kind of an awareness, but you work that into your own soul in prayer so that it becomes part of you. But then there is this other part. Some of it is explaining to just track the logic, the spiritual logic of a text till the listener goes, wow, I never saw that. I see how these things. That's why exposition is so helpful, because you're tracking some biblical logic instead of kind of cherry picking things. But the other part that gets lost by the sort of analytical mind, if you will, is helping people grasp the wonder of something. I'm just writing right now, Steve, a column for next week about where Jesus, the Good Shepherd, says, and I have other sheep who are not of the sheep pen. I will bring them in, and there will be one flock and one shepherd. I wanted to think about that one phrase, there will be one flock. And just to think about it. And I prayed over it. I thought, take me into that. Help me see the wonder. And that is, you can't do word studies or anything. You just got to sit and think about it. Yeah. You just got to pray about it. And I think Jesus loves to show us the wonder or the surprise or the perplexity, the sorrow, whatever it is. And when we can find that, it's more than emotional, but I don't know a better word. When we can find that sort of emotive center or part of a text and put that into words, it's like hearing a song. A great song isn't just about the word. In fact, sometimes it has nothing to do with the words. Sometimes we like songs that are kind of stupid.
Yeah.
A great sermon finds the song in the text and finds words for that. And not everybody is gifted in words, but there is a way where that gets into you and it'll come out if you work at it. I can't do it on the spot. I have to sit and think about it.
Yeah. I love that just the simple reflection and space to say, hey, Lord, show me the wonder in this verse.
Right.
I mean, that's, like in 2 Timothy, when Paul is writing and he does the most bizarre thing. He writes about 3 fields. And he's like,
yes.
Hey, there's like a soldier and doesn't get involved in civilian affairs. He only has one commanding officer. Oh, there's an athlete. It's like goes for the victor's crown by playing by the rules. And there's an agricultural field farmer. And he's like, only cares about the harvest. And then the next verse, have you seen the next verse? It says, Timothy, reflect on this, for the Lord will give you insight into all that it means. It's like Paul's like, you figure it out. Like, I'm not going to, the Lord's, and I think like so often, we lose sight of that. Hey, like reflect on this. The Lord wants to give you insight, show me the wonder, show me what it means. And I just was doing this for the last, 6 weeks, because I've been reading through Acts and we've been at Acts 20. And I read that passage where Paul he's giving his final words to the church in Ephesus, and he says this line where he kind of like adds to Jesus's phrase, but he says, "It is more blessed to give than receive," and he quotes like Jesus saying it, and I think the big question is it? Like, because that's
right. That's a great question.
So playing with that counterintuitive piece, right?
Right.
You just sit in there and go like, this is
really?
not the way yeah, exactly. That's not the way the world works. The world
What
is
about?
Yes. And then you start to live in that wonder of, wow, like to be generous of spirit. Wow, it's more blessed. And how is that with my time or my talent or my treasure, my testimony, my thinking? Like, am I more generous of spirit? And so it's just like to that point, like that, I never had the language counterintuitive or that simple prayer of, hey, show me the wonder. But man, that is so rich in bringing the soul into healthy alignment with the way of Jesus.
Eugene Peterson used the phrase contemplative exegesis. And that has become really a model. They both come together. And that I feel like texts, depending on where you are in the Bible, they have these truth centers that it's our job to find when you're preaching. It's what's the the author's thesis here. Yeah. They also have a kind of singing center. And they're not always exactly the same. There might be a phrase that's secondary to the logic that is the part that sings. And I can't explain that, but I look for it because partly it's my nature to look for it. I'm more of a poet than I am a scientist or an engineer, But the soul resonates with those things, just like a song.
Do you have from your library of sermons, where you just have a moment where you're like, oh, like at face value the text is saying this, but like the soul of it, like that I love that line. It's like that resounding hum that's like underneath. It's that bass note that's like, it's that poetry that, if it's right there, but if you're just trying to read literally, you might miss it. You got to feel it.
That's right.
You got to,
one of the fun things about retirement, when I was thinking about retirement, I kind of made this promise. I'm not going to preach old sermons because that's sloughing off. What I actually found was there are some old sermons that are like favorite songs. And I love to sing it. I love to preach 1 Thessalonians 4 about the second coming. It gets more musical, more wonderful. I mean, I've got some great lines in that sermon, Or I love the passage in Hebrews 12 about the two mountains.
Yeah.
And I'm going to take you on a trip.
Yeah.
Look over here. Look here. Do you know what this means? It's not just explaining. It's let me take you into the courtroom. Let me take you into that stuff really fires me up. And I know I'm kind of wired for it in ways that not everybody is, but man, if I get a chance to preach it, I'm a happy man. But I also find, as you do, Steve, that every time there's a new text before me, it's okay. I'm supposed to preach for someone, and they want to, kind of like your series, but they want to take the Exodus 34, where God identifies himself, the Lord, the compassionate, gracious God, slow to anger. And I'm assigned loving kindness, hesed.
Hesed, yeah.
I'm not used to preaching a sermon like that.
Yeah.
And I don't quite know how I'm going to come at it. It's essentially a topical sermon. But I'm kind of excited about it. There will be a wonder in it, and it'll be good for me to have, just as a homiletician, to figure out how that works.
Yeah.
But also to pray that there would be this wonder in that congregation, in this little church, where when they get to kind of be baptized in the Hesed of God.
Yeah. Well, the best book on Hesed I've ever read is by a man by the name of Mont Smith. It's out of print. Mont Smith, he was a professor way back. But man, covenant theology, man, it's like it's hard to find. But if you can get your hands on that or find a library that has it, it just changed everything for me around Hesed. But I Lee, this is such a beautiful piece, because that phrase, contemplative exegesis, you know what I mean? Like, just like finding the soul and finding where it sings and letting it do its work in wonderful ways inside you and allowing you to see what God is up to. And, that I think is probably my favorite part of the process of preaching. It's like when all of a sudden you're like, you've got like verse and you got chorus and you're like, okay, yeah. And then you got second verse, you got chorus, yeah. And you got like third verse and chorus, like, yeah. And then the bridge comes, you know what I mean? And all of a sudden you're like, oh my goodness, I had this happen, and it totally surprised me. I was just preaching another Acts passage, but like Paul was retelling his story, and he says that Ananias like looks at him and says, "What are you waiting for?"
Right.
Like just the simple, what are you waiting for? Like, get up, be baptized, have your sins washed away by calling on the name of the Lord. And just to have that like bass note, what are you waiting for? what are you, and again, it just like that resonance, like all of a sudden, just the response of people, because I then just flipped it and was like, here's the 5 top reasons that people wait to be baptized. And I just, and I just went after them, and I was like, but what are you waiting for? And just sitting on that question, and I had read that passage.
Oh, sure.
45 times, 50 times in my lifetime, missed that. And then all of a sudden you hear it and you come into that like slipstream and you're like, oh my goodness. That feels like you're surfing the text.
That's really great. This challenge I have now is a big part of my life is writing. And you refer to these devotionals, they're letters to pastors every week for 3.5 years. I've written 182 of these.
Amazing.
And, they're brief. They're 600 words. What I've learned is, and I have the advantage, I'm speaking to pastors or church leaders as a rule. I don't have to explain things. This isn't typical exegesis.
Right.
I take one thing, one phrase, one verse. 600 words, I can't even reproduce a text because it takes too many words.
Yep.
So it has to be really concise. And I get to write just for the heart of a pastor. I don't have to speak to the lost or, it's just this little, it's you.
Yeah.
You'd get this. I don't even put references in most of the time because you can find it if you want it. I don't want to interrupt the flow. And I think the great privilege of speaking to other shepherds, which I treasure that. And then taking a thing like, where like one of the recent columns last time was Jesus says, I'm the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for his sheep. I wrote part of the column about what a wonder that is. But then I said, we're in shepherd school. And we all have to do that.
Yeah.
Part of being a shepherd is you follow Jesus in this. And nobody really prepared us for all the dying that we have in the ministry. Each of these little columns has my desire to kind of speak into the my spiritual gifts, Steve, I have 2, wisdom and encouragement. I am not good at speaking into the times. I'm not good at that. I respect people. I read this, my hero, a preaching hero, lived 100 years ago. His name is Alexander McLaren. And anybody who reads commentaries will run into his name because he's quoted all the time. Yeah. And that's how I kind of looked him up and got to know him. And when he was about 75 years old, he was speaking to the Assembly of the Baptists in England. And he said in his introduction, he said, please allow me to quote an old Puritan. When so many brethren are speaking to the times, please allow one poor brother to speak to eternity. And I thought, that's what I can do. Yeah. One old guy speaking to things that are more timeless. It doesn't matter when you read these columns, what time of year or now or in a year, it doesn't matter. And I have really loved that role. And it has changed. It's not preaching. I don't have the breadth that you get in a sermon. It's this little thing. And just being privileged to have time to think about it, find language that you like. You got to like the language. If you don't like the language, if it doesn't move you, if you don't go, oh, I really have to put that, you won't read it next week because there's 1,000 things you can read. Right. We all look for somebody. That's why I like Peterson. He just put things so well. Yeah. And we all like that. So that's something I never expected this. I never tried to be a writer. I fell into it by the graces of God. And this is a great privilege. It's a little different than the pastoral preaching work that we do.
Well, what I love, and if you go to Lee's website, it's LeeEclov.com. So L, 3 E's in a row, and then CLOV.com. Lee Eclov. You will see right front and center his heart for pastors, and also like there's tools on his site around for you to like ask yourself, man, and like, where's my tank? Is it empty?
Right.
Like there's ways just to, you see your heart for the pastor. You see some of the writings that you've done and the articles that you've dropped. And, I think for shepherding the shepherd, I think that there's a lot of pastors right now, who are in that grind. Sunday's coming, and sometimes Wednesday's coming too,
Right.
And elder meeting's coming, and
Yes.
my kids are coming, to graduate or coming to drive, coming to, into their own. Like there's so much that is coming at the pastor, and I really just love how and I've never said it like that, and I will from now on and give you credit. Pastor equals shepherd school, that shepherd school. And we're in shepherd school. And here's the thing I always will say is when I practiced basketball in my driveway, nobody came and watched me. Right? It was just me in my driveway, just working on my game. And then every Sunday, like that I teach, you're in front of 50 people, 100 people, 1,000 people, whatever the numbers. And you're proficient, but it's still shepherd school. You know what I mean? Like
that's right.
And so how do you balance that proficient yet recognizing you are still in shepherd school? And how did you do that?
That's an interesting question. Well, one, I just, like you, I really took preaching seriously. And not, it's like basketball or learning piano or anything. You start by just not being very good at it and being mechanical about it.
Yeah.
Finding your points or whatever, The wonder of finding your voice is a remarkable thing that when I look back on it, I can think, oh, yeah, I know that, but I don't quite know how it happened. It's just, and it's the same as a writer. When the first book I wrote, which was for Moody Publishers, my congregation didn't know I was writing it. And there was this, we were about 2 weeks from finishing the book, and I had a congregational meeting, and I said, I want to tell you this. Let me read a little bit. And I read this part. I liked it a lot. And afterwards, we're having coffee, and one of the ladies says, wow, it sounded so much like you. And I said, you have no idea how hard it is to sound like me, to find my voice. Yeah. I think that was part of it, is that slow process. It's of being authentic and warm-hearted. I'm not mad at you. This is a grace event. You're here. I mean, I'm not speaking to all the people that aren't here. I'm talking to the ones that are here. And it's a great privilege to do this. And I like that. I liked, in a smaller church, I liked that I knew the people. I don't know that I tailored sermons so much, but I suppose it happened sort of unconsciously. But I looked out, these are my people. I know their names. I talk to the children. I love meeting the new people. I love those things. And I kind of miss it. The second to preaching was walking around and just hand on shoulders. And so I still do it at coffee shop. I just meet people, and I love that. I think if I could do something better, I wish I'd have been a better prayer. I don't think I prayed very well for people.
Yeah.
I don't think I wrestled for them. I didn't even know what that meant, actually. Yeah. Was that just pray more often, or what is that, But I did try to be more aware of sort of stepping into their lives, asking, you know this, a pastor can ask people pretty personal questions just out of the box.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's been a year since your husband died. How's it going?
Yeah.
What was it like to go through cancer? I mean, what was, are you still talking to God? I mean, you can just ask blunt questions. And I think elders can too. They don't always know it, but they can. I don't know if I'm answering your question, but those are some of the things that come to my mind.
Yeah. Lee, just an absolute gift and wealth of wisdom. So talk just a little bit about the actual devotion book, Shepherding the Shepherd. Where can you find those?
Well, they're published. There's 2 of them, and they are collections of 52 of these letters that I have written to pastors, 52 each. And they're published by Christianity Today. They're available on Amazon or from Christianity Today, and they're called Shepherding the Shepherd, volumes 1 and 2. And they're little. 600 words is a really quick read, right? So that's where they are. And I'm very, as you know, Steve, I mean, we're both privileged to have this opportunity to work with Preaching Today, which, as you said at the outset, takes us into places all over the world. I mean, it's just crazy to me. I'm from this little place, and I get, I get an email from, Australia or England or somewhere, and America, all over the place. It's just amazing to me. I always respond. I have the time, so far at least. I always respond to every single person that writes to me.
Yeah.
Often I'll, connect with them on Zoom. I just enjoy it.
Yeah.
I love talking to pastors. And, I think the thing that what I bring to pastors, I'm not primarily a counselor. I'm not helping them in distress. A lot of pastors just don't have a pastor friend.
Yeah.
They haven't found a way to do that. I did. I always had pastor friends that I met with every week. I did that for, 30 years probably. And it was the safest place I knew. I loved being with those guys. And we didn't even socialize. It was just then, But I think of my role as, here I am, this old guy, I'm 72. I like them. I know their world. And I feel like in writing, it's my way of, I like the letter format. It's my way to talk to them and to be their friend and to sympathize and to delight, I hope, to take us back again and again to these things that are common to us all.
Yeah.
Wherever you serve, whatever your denomination, if you love Christ, if you love Scripture, then we'll be on the same on the same path. I don't. That's enough.
Well, I think for any of the pastors that are listening, if you you're on a staff of 8 or staff of 20 or staff of 200, doesn't matter. Sometimes I think we're all looking for resources at which to kind of shepherd the shepherds in our flock. And again, like our junior high pastor, who's an emerging voice, or our kids pastor, who's an emerging voice, or this executive pastor, who's an emerging voice. And sometimes it's like, getting those groups of people together, or sometimes it's before a lead team meeting, having something just to think about. And when you have someone who's kind of written these and they're, 600, 700 words tops, but you can just kind of like read through it and, just, hey, what came out of that? Because again, we are in Shepherd School, and this little resource, is just packed with so much. And again, for those who aren't in the Shepherd School, it might not be the thing for them, but for us who are, and we've chosen this, and it's a privilege. And yet in the midst of it, having to learn how to die to self and how to sacrifice and how to step into our gifts, and just to have someone kind of guiding you as you guide the other shepherds on your staff. And this is just an incredible resource, and Lee's just an incredible resource. And
Thank you.
I always appreciate your work. I appreciate your writing. You're dropping knowledge on preachingtoday.com all the time. And I just think the world of you, and you're wildly accessible too, to that point. I mean, so any of you who are listening who just even need to reach out, I mean, go to leeeclov.com. You can see his work. He's got a lot of his writings in the Shepherding the Shepherd right there from Preaching Today. And you can get a sense of like who he is and his sound. And I mean, you'll just feel, just as you've heard in his voice, the pastoral heart. He finished well, and he's finishing well. and he wants so badly for you to finish well.
Amen.
So Lee, thank you for your time. I'm really, really grateful. And besides leeeclov.com, is there anywhere else people can find you? Are you on social media? Are you like...
Not much. I'm on Facebook, but I'm not. No, I'm not a lot.
Yeah, mainly
my first editor, and marketing people, and they wanted me to do Twitter and everything, and I just thought I can't do this. I can't keep up. I can't think of this much. So it's there, and really through the column is free through Preaching Today. They have, you and I both know that it's a subscription service, but they also have a free list that comes, you get something from them every Monday with some resources. And then my column comes out every Wednesday.
Yeah.
And it's free to anybody who wants to go sign up for it. It's pretty amazing. I mean, there's close to 60,000 people on that list.
I know.
It's amazing, isn't it?
It's
Look at us.
Yep.
Crazy.
Well, thank you so much, Lee, for your just continued heartbeat for pastors and just your faithfulness. And yeah, I mean, I think in this line, I'm walking away with just, thinking about, man, my next sermon, and just to show me the wonder, Lord. I mean, it's a simple breath prayer. Show me the wonder, the contemplative exegesis. Oh man, I was going to find that soul. And, man, thank you. This is a real gift. And to any of you listening, check out leeeclov.com, check out preachingtoday.com. You can read some of his work there. And if this kind of struck a chord, feel free, reach out to Lee, share this with a pastor friend who just might need a little shepherding of the shepherd while in shepherd school. That might be a great encouragement to them. And if this podcast resonates too, leave a review or shoot us an email. We always love hearing from you. And thank you so much for your continued support. And it means more than you know. But as you walk through shepherd school, well, let me do this. I was going to do a close, but I've got the shepherding the shepherd legend. Would you just say a little benediction over the pastor?
I would love to. That'd be awesome. Steve, I love benedictions. And I'm not sure this is a good idea, but let me do it this way. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you and give you peace, and give you peace, and give you peace forever. The Lord be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace, and give you peace, and give you peace forever.
That was beautiful. Before we end, can I just tell you, on Sunday, we did child dedication. So the kids and the parents, I made the whole church sing that a cappella over the parents. And I led out on it, totally off key, and the whole room busted out laughing. So it's like the Lord humbling me and reminding me how to sing that song well. And you just did it the next day. So I just love it. The Lord, you're so good. But my friends, may you hear that blessing, and may he grant you peace. Grace and peace, everyone. Thank you.